Welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, President of Texas Values. Great to be with you on a glorious week in the state of Texas. Early voting for runoff elections has started today. As a matter of fact, at 7 a.m. this morning. Were you in line to vote? There probably wasn't a line, but I don't know. Maybe there was. We'll see. There's some of these races are going to be extremely active and, shall I say, spirited. Okay, so from today, Monday through Friday, that's May 20th through 24th, runoff elections, and then the main election day is next Tuesday, May 28th, for a number of elections that have gone to a runoff on the Republican and primary side. If you want information about candidates, go to freevotersguide.com. One of the issues that a lot of voters are probably talking about or thinking about is the issue of school choice. So our guest today on the Texas Values Report knows a lot about this issue. Corey DeAngelis is a leader on the school choice parental rights movement. He's been very active across the country. He resides right here in the great state of Texas, and he's got a new book that's come out. He's spoken at a few of our events before, and we've been able to interact on many occasions. Corey, welcome back to the Texas Values Report.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for having me.
Well, look, next week there'll be a lot of work to do and some fun things as well after we get past this runoff election. Of course, the Republican Party of Texas has their state convention later this week. But the following week, May 30th, you've got a big event, a book signing, a book release that promotes and talks about and gives more visibility to your new book that's come out regarding the issue of parental rights. We're in the middle of a presidential year. There's a lot of things for voters to think about. But I want to drill down on that in just a second. But I think the big news is, at least where we want to cover, is this event coming up next week. And you have a great book that's come out recently, and a lot of people are already talking about it. It's called The Parent Revolution, a great guide to help moms and dads take back control of their children's education from the radical Marxists ruining our schools. That's a quote from President Donald Trump. That's a pretty good endorsement.
Yeah, I'll take it. That's a huge endorsement. I'm honored to have President Trump's endorsement. It's the Parent Revolution, rescuing your kids from the radicals ruining our schools. And if you want to look at Ted Cruz's endorsement on the back, you can take his advice you can ruin Randi Weingarten's day by reading this book. So I dedicate it actually to the teachers union bosses who overplayed their hand and awakened a sleeping giant, which happens to be parents who want more of a say in their kids' education. They fought to keep the schools closed, the unions did. They held children's education hostage. They were fear-mongering every step of the way, but that showed families nationwide what was happening in the classroom. In a lot of ways, the radical left didn't even have to have their own kids to shape the future of our country. They were able to use the government school system to infiltrate those institutions, to mold the minds of other people's children. And so conservatives and even independents, you can't win this war just by having more kids. You need to strike at the root. You have to be able to take back control of our schools, but also have the money follow the child to a school that actually aligns with your values as opposed to radical leftist ideology. So this is a really important book. Obviously, President Trump endorsed it, Ted Cruz endorsed it, but this really empowers parents. It tells the story of how we started winning on the issue. Texas does get a huge shout out as well. Once we win next year, I'm going to have to write a follow-up book completely on Texas, because this is going to be we already had a political earthquake rock Texas on Super Tuesday. May 28th is going to go well as well, because the anti-school choice incumbents are losing their seats.
Now, look, that's a big part of the runoff elections. We're talking with Corey DeAngelis. He is a leader in the parental rights and school choice movement, not only in Texas, but across the country. These runoff elections that are happening this week, as I mentioned in the beginning, in my introductory comments, that here in Texas, the runoff elections started this morning, Monday, 7 a.m., run all the way through Friday. Main election day is May 28th. And I think people get some confused sometimes. They're like, early voting, but election day is on Tuesday. Those are just the words we use. Today's an election day, too. It's not as if there's not an election. We say early voting so people understand that, it's different from your main Tuesday election day. But the only difference is the date. And it's really a courtesy, right? It's convenience. So if you wait or you have to, manage your schedule or whatever, and you can't be there on Tuesday, May 28th, well, go vote right now, right? And take care of that. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But a lot of reason that there are runoffs is because some of these people on the ballot are incumbents who did not support school choice, and they're in the, in jeopardy of losing their seat. Governor Abbott's been very active on this issue. But let's return back to your book. As a matter of fact, the book's going to be available next week. TPPF, Texas Public Policy Foundation, has a great event that Texas Values is co-sponsoring. Corey DeAngelis is going to be there. We're going to have copies of his book there available for you, and likely to get a signature. Maybe you can get a photo with Corey. I want to ask, though, okay, there's a great quote by Senator Cruz on the back of your book. As you mentioned, ruin Randi Weingartner's day by reading this book. Who is Randi Weingartner? Because I see this back and forth that you have on Twitter. And tell us about her. Why is she so relevant to this discussion, or shouldn't be?
Yeah, Look, she closes her replies on Twitter like she closed the schools. She's the head of the AFT, the one of the largest teachers union in the country, and she's the one that's always in Ukraine. Right as the nation's report card scores come out, I mean, I woke up a couple of years ago to what I thought was a Babylon Bee headline. It was a tweet from Randi Weingarten. She said that she was going to the front lines to assess the situation in Ukraine. What the heck was our teachers union boss doing in Ukraine right after our nation's report card showed decades of learning loss, partially caused by her union-induced school closures? Her union lobbied the CDC to make it more difficult to open schools. They were threatening strikes in 2020 over school reopening nationwide. They even called Trump's plan to reopen schools reckless, callous, and cruel. So her union actually has a state affiliate here in Texas called the Texas Federation of Teachers. It's their AFT state affiliate. And they used to endorse a lot of the so-called Republicans who voted against school choice, including Glenn Rogers, who lost his election this year as an incumbent by 27 points against school choice supporter Mike Olcott. So, look, 77% of the races we engaged in on Super Tuesday against anti-school choice incumbents, we were victorious. So 10 of the 13 we targeted lost their seats on election night or were forced into runoffs. And most of those guys forced into runoffs on May 28th, they are going into those runoffs in second place. And if you look at the data in Texas historically over the past 30 years, you basically have a 10% chance of reelection if you are forced into a runoff.
Yeah, so the numbers,
news. I mean,
they start to look bad when you're incumbent and you get pushed to a runoff. Some people survive, but the margin could be thin and the likelihood is pretty low. To your point, we're in the middle of early voting. It started today, Monday, May 20th, for runoff elections. Go to freevotersguide.com if you want to see information about the candidates and help you make that decision. Corey, so the book, The Parent Revolution. So you and I support the issue of school choice and parental rights. There are some people that, a lot of times work with our groups or kind of on the same side as we are, so to speak, or whatever, that still are not quite sure that when they think of the word school choice or, education freedom, whatever, there is still a little, suspicion or, just sort of a nervousness that some of them have. What could they find in the book that will give them some peace and comfort and, give them some information to say, okay, this makes sense. Now I can fully support it.
Yeah, it goes over all the arguments for, against school choice and swats them all down. Some of the people on our side might make the argument that with government shekels comes government shackles. Well, guess what? You can get the shackles without the shekels. The government can already regulate private and home education, and they do in other states. Look at communist New York and Massachusetts and Rhode Island. They have the worst homeschooling laws on the books, but they don't have any private school choice. These are separate issues. Oregon, they outlawed private education altogether. You had to send your kid to the government schools back in 1922. Thankfully, the Supreme Court overturned that bigoted law in 1925 when they said that the child is not the mere creature of the state. Look, we have to take the W or else we're going to be stuck with the L. We can't make perfect the enemy of the good. And look, not all school choice bills are created equal. We should be looking for anti-government provisions in the text. And places like Arizona, their law on the books, they have where the government can not tell you to change your curriculum if you take the money. And look, at the end of the day, this is all voluntary. Every family can make their own cost-benefit decisions. for their own kids. But also politics, as you know, Jonathan, is all about organized interest, pushing for what they want. If you have school choice, if you create a bigger tent and bring more people into the fold by using school choice programs, they're going to be on your side to fight against authoritarian overreach in the future. If you have more people benefiting from private and home education, when there's those calls for regulation in the future, because look, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, will be more likely to win that war when the time comes, when they try to come after our freedom.
Well,
so let's take the win. And
yeah, no, you and I talked about this before, too. We're talking with Corey DeAngelis. He is a leader in the parental rights and school choice movement. He's got a great book that just came out, The Parent Revolution. President Donald Trump and Senator Ted Cruz have put out endorsement comments and messages supporting the book. And, the elections, there has been a lot of talk about the issue of school choice. There are a lot of people that have, they're seeing the reasons why, if you will, because what you mentioned, some of the COVID shutdowns and what's left of that, they are worried that the kids are going to stumble across a book that's got pornographic material. Even when that's brought to the attention of a lot of schools, they act like it's not that big of a deal. You see parents that are treated with such disrespect at school board meetings, regardless of what some of the circumstances are and some of the topics. And so, more and more you have people looking for a reason to have their kid be in a different environment. And so people are looking for a way to exercise that freedom. But you and I talked about this before. The individuals, the House and Senate members who are going to be supportive of school choice are also going to be the types that they're not going to want government regulation in those schools either. They're typically the ones that support religious freedom. They support parental rights and all those things that, a lot of folks want to make sure that they don't lose that ability to have those freedoms as a cost of having the educational choice. We can have both.
Yeah, exactly. We should take the incremental victory. We should take the step in the right direction. And 11 other red states have done so already. This is a GOP litmus test issue. So Republicans are picking up the football as the GOP is becoming the parents' party in a lot of cases. And whether they want the politicians like it or not, the voters are holding them to it. And in Texas, all of the polls were showing that the Republican primary voters were super supportive of school choice leading up to even Super Tuesday. You look at University of Houston, UT Austin, UT Tyler, Dallas Morning News of all places. Texas Tribune was even reporting plurality support, at least across different demographics. And Morning Consult also found majority of Texans, even when they used the loaded term preferred by the unions of vouchers, a majority of Texans also support those as well. So look, the money should follow the child. It's going to happen in Texas next year, and it's the union's own fault. And parents should be able to take their kids' education dollars to the school that aligns with their values and best meets their needs in other ways. And then look, you mentioned that parents aren't being respected. You're absolutely right. Some of them are getting their mics cut off at school board meetings. They were even labeled as domestic terrorists in a letter from the School Boards Association to President Biden. I mean, it's total overreach, and they just try to bully and silence parents into submission. Well, guess what? If you have the choice to take the money elsewhere, they're going to view you as a customer, not a nuisance. They're not going to try to label you as an evil person anymore. And if you do, you'll have real power. You can take your money elsewhere. You can defund the people who are trying to subvert your values and try to teach your kids in ways that aren't aligned with your own. And Vodi Bakum said it best. We cannot continue to send our children to Caesar for their education and be surprised when they come home as Romans. The good news is parents aren't surprised anymore. They've woken up and they've started a parent revolution, and it's only going to continue in red states in particular. And Texas is going to get it done next year.
Well, so check out the book. So, for those of us that still read books, right? A lot of people, now I listen to a lot of books on different podcasts or different online sources, however you need to get the information, but many people are looking for a little bit more. This is going to be a great resource for that. Like I said, we've got an event that we're partnering with Texas Public Policy Foundation next week on Wednesday. We're going to make copies of the book available as well. I see here you sent a copy of the book to Randi Weingarten. I'm sure she was delighted to receive it, and maybe she can, maybe she might learn something when she looks in there. Real quick, I got to wrap up. Corey was a speaker at our event last year. If you don't come to these policy events, you're missing out. We usually preview for what the next issues, the big issues are. So this year it's going to be September 13th and 14th, our annual policy forum over at Great Hills Baptist Church. Go to our website, see all the great speakers. But it's usually people like Corey that, hey, these are big issues that are hitting. They're about to get bigger. And no doubt here. Corey, listen, I appreciate all the great work you're doing, hustling out there, not afraid to take on the other side. And I look forward to seeing you next week at that event down at Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jonathan. And thank you so much for sponsoring. For everybody that wants to come, May 30th, 11 a.m. at TPPF, I'll be signing books. And thanks in part to Texas Values.
Corey DeAngelis has been our guest today on the Texas Values Report. This is a short segment for the week. You know, there's a lot going on with the Republican Party of Texas State Convention. We'll have a booth there. We do have a private breakfast. If you want to come to that, check your email. We only have a few seats available for that. We've got runoff elections. We've got graduations, all kinds of wild, interesting and important stuff going on. But consider donating at txvalues.org so we can continue to protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.